Welcome, everyone. We are here with Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who I had an opportunity to meet way back in 2008 at the TED conference, who some of you know, that's really when her career took off and had this amazing TED Talk and book that came out the same year. And I'm just so honored to have you here with us today, over 10 years later.
Thank you. It's always fun for me to run into people who were there because it was a moment we all shared that was very special.
Yeah, it was an incredible moment. I mean, I just remember everybody had tears in their eyes and, we just stood up and said, what was that? Right. That was kind of the feeling that we all had in the audience. And I was fortunate enough to be in the second row for that. So anyway, for those who are not familiar with your work, or for younger people who may not have seen that TED Talk or know about your pivotal book, I'm going to give a little bit of a background about you before we get started. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor is a Harvard-trained and published neuroanatomist whose research specialized in understanding how our brain creates our perception of reality. When she was 37, she experienced a severe hemorrhage in the left hemisphere of her brain. And on the afternoon of her stroke, she could not walk, talk, read, write, or recall any part of her life. And it took her 8 years to get back and recover her physical, emotional, and her thinking abilities, which we're going to touch upon today as it relates to her new book. So this led to her New York Times bestselling memoir, My Stroke of Insight. And by the way, even though it came out in 2008, it's evergreen. So I really encourage you to get it. And then, of course, her renowned TED Talk, which we just talked about. And this became the first TED Talk to ever go viral. So lots followed, of course, and it all happened fast. She was chosen as one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world, and was a premier guest on Oprah's Soul Series webcast. So her latest book, Whole Brain Living, which I couldn't put down, it came out in 2021. We're going to talk about this today. So as part of her journey, she's committed to not only helping others find their way back from neurological trauma, but also eager to help everyone better understand their brain so they can live their best life. And then she also has a foundation that provides services and programs to advance brain awareness, appreciation, injury prevention, neurological recovery, more. So, wow, what a bio.
What a bio.
So thanks for taking the time. I've been excited about your work for such a long time now. And you probably don't remember us meeting. It was a brief passing in the TED foyer in 2008, but here we are a decade later. And wow, what a journey. So before we get to your latest book, let's rewind the clock a little bit. So after the success of the book and the talk, and I know you've been giving talks to people all over the world and educating people, what were some of the aha learning moments in those years as things just blew wide open for you?
I describe when I had that stroke, I literally could not walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of my life. I mean, it was a tsunami of impact on my world. And I always describe the TED Talk as the same type of tsunami of energy, because once I delivered that TED Talk, all of a sudden I was world famous instantaneously, literally. And I started traveling the world, and I was recognized in Hong Kong and Scotland. And I was even recognized in Antarctica, if you can believe that. I mean, it was like everywhere I went, people were going, oh my gosh, you're the brain lady. And it was like, oh my gosh. So, to have that level of reverence and love come to me, because, one of the beauties of that TED Talk is it broke down all boundaries between me and others, because that was the journey of losing the left hemisphere experience of separation into this collective whole. So now I was everyone's best friend. And it was fun and it was great. And I just had a wonderful few years of travel the world. But for me, there was a miss because even though people were having reverence for me because of their experience with the TED Talk, what I wanted was people to have reverence for themselves and for one another. And that was the miss for me. And literally, it took years for me to figure out, how do I communicate this to my fellow humans so that other people really get it? And I was giving a presentation at a conference, and I was talking about, how I love talking about the brain. And in this day and age, people love hearing about the brain, and they even know the different parts of the brain that, we have an amygdala and a hippocampus and a cingulate gyrus. But the fact of the matter is we have two amygdala. And there was literally an audible gasp in the room where people were realizing we have two. And what that said to me was, that's it. That's the key. We all think we have one emotional system because they're so integrated and like a big soup, and we just kind of flop from one emotion into another emotion. But it's not like that at all. We have two very separate emotional systems. And once people understood that we have two, now we understand how we can have emotional conflict, because these two different systems have different values and they have different ways of being in the world. And because of that, then if we can differentiate the two emotional groups of brain cells and the two thinking groups of brain cells, and realize what the skill sets of each of those is, and what therefore the personalities are that we are exhibiting when we're being that character profile, oh my gosh, now we have differentiated our own brain, and we have so much more power over who and how we want to be in any moment.
Yeah, with awareness comes power. And, for so long we haven't been aware. And you're right, too, when you think about it, people just make this general statement, oh, well, I'm a right brain person, so I'm a creative person over here, and you're the analytical left brain, and so therefore we're at odds. But it's not like that at all.
It's not like that at all. We all have, at a neuroanatomical perspective, and I always go back to the cells because that's what we are. Every ability we have is because we have brain cells that perform that function, whether it's I'm feeling sadness, that's a circuit in my brain, or I'm wiggling my finger, that's a circuit inside of my brain. Every ability we have is dependent on the brain cells. So when we really understand these collections of cells, we become so much more predictable to ourselves, and the people we are in relationship with become much more predictable and understandable, because we're realizing if there's 4 of me and there's 4 of you in every relationship, that means there's 8 of us. Okay, well, no wonder interpersonal relationships are so difficult, because we're navigating 8 different personalities.
Yeah, it's not like the Enneagram, right? Where it's like, okay, a 7 is talking to a 1, right?
This really adds in. And then we become completely predictable. And it's total personal power and freedom, because now I have the freedom to choose. Do I want to be emotionally reactive to you? If I have been triggered and I am emotionally reactive to you, which part of your character profile put me into my own emotional reactivity? And then I can look at that relationship, and I can really start better understanding the dances that people do on a moment by moment basis.
So, one of the questions that I had for you, and I almost think it might be better to talk about these 4 pieces of our brain first, and then kind of go back to which ones were offline for you during those 8 years. Mm-hmm. So why don't we talk a little bit about the characters, and then, which is related to your book, of course, but then we can talk about which ones of those were offline for those 8 years and what the struggle was.
Absolutely. So as we look at the brain, we have a right hemisphere and a left hemisphere. And these 2 hemispheres are completely separate from one another, except for some 300 million axonal fibers of the corpus callosum. So the right hemisphere and left hemisphere know what's going on in the other hemisphere, and which one hemisphere is generally dominating the similar group of cells in the opposite hemisphere. So one of the myths is that I'm always right brain or I'm always left brain. No, I have these thousands and thousands of circuits inside of each hemisphere. And right now I might be doing 3/4 of the experience that I'm having, maybe in my left hemisphere versus 1/4 in my right hemisphere. But, they're having a relationship with one another, but they are separate. So as we think about the anatomy of the brain, we all have a brain stem. And the brain stem is the reptilian brain. This is the on-off switches. I'm hungry, I eat, I'm satisfied. I'm thirsty, I drink. My brain tells me to stop drinking. I want to mate, I mate. I'm done with that. On-off switches of the reptilian brain. And then new tissue gets added on top. And the new tissue is the amygdala, one in each hemisphere, the hippocampi, one in each hemisphere, and the cingulate gyrus, one in each hemisphere. So those are the cells of the limbic or emotional system in our brain. So I have a left emotional and I have a right emotional. And then on top of that gets added the cerebral cortex. And that's the difference between the human brain and other mammals. So the reptiles have the brainstem, mammals have the limbic emotional system, and then humans have cerebral cortex thinking tissue on top. So as I talk about the 4 characters, I'm going to talk about left thinking tissue as character 1. And left thinking tissue, this is the portion of our brain that likes to create order in the external world. So it's relating my internal world in the external world, and it wants control, because otherwise it's existing in chaos, and we can't do that as rational human beings. So character 1 is our rational thinking brain. It's our A-type personality. It wants to be the boss, and it wants to control people, places, and things, and time. And it cares about our appearances as we present to the external world. So it actually put earrings in my ears. It's the only part of my brain that cares about earrings, right? This also has a definition of where I begin and where I end. How is it that I know that this nose on my face is a part of me, but these glasses that live on my face, they're not a part of me? How do I know that? Because there's a group of cells in that character 1 tissue defines the boundaries of where I begin and where I end. It also gives me language. I can create sound. Dog is a sound, and then it places meaning on that sound so that I can take the mass of knowingness inside of me and communicate with you in the external world. So that's character 1. It's the boss. I call my boss Helen, Hell on Wheels. She gets it done. Renee, have you named your character 1?
No, I haven't yet, although I've been coming familiar with Helen, Abby, Pigeon, and Pigpen, sorry, and Queen Toad, who's my favorite.
And I encourage people to actually name these different parts of yourself so that you can call on them at will and instantaneously know who you're talking about. These are parts of your identity, and they want a name. They want you to know them.
So rather than use the character names that you've given them, you're suggesting that people create their own.
That's right. And so your character 1, if you had a parent or a grandparent who was got to be the boss, got to be right, likes to be in control, name it, give it a name that you will automatically remember. Oh yeah, okay, Sarge,
Great idea.
The name is.
Yeah, it's a really great idea. I love it.
And then character 2 is going to also be in that left hemisphere. And this is going to be the emotion of my past and of my future, because inside of the left hemisphere is my identity, my ego self. Jill Bolte Taylor lives in this left hemisphere. And on the morning of my stroke happened deep inside of here. And it grew over the course of 4 hours and wiped out the left hemisphere. And in the absence of the left hemisphere, Jill Bolte Taylor, she died that day. And so our identity, our individual nature of me being separate from all that is. Again, those cells back here defining where I begin, where I end, my language. And then also in me, I span across time. So this is going to be the emotions of my past and all of my future, my fears of the future. So any of my trauma from my childhood is going to be in character 2. And also my craving tissue for any addiction is also in that character 2. So as we look at our little character 2 self, this is a part of us that is amygdala, hippocampus, cingulate gyrus of my past and of my future. So this is a portion of our brain that is little. It never matures. It's wired up, ready to function. If when I'm born, if my needs are not being met, I'm going to react to that because I have a want. And so that's the little character 2 portion. It's all the pain from the past. It's all of my ability to hold a grudge, my ability to blame you that my life isn't right, because the left hemisphere is able to create an expectation. Well, perfectionism is an ongoing state of expectation to the way I want it to be, which is how unrealistic is that when, life is a mess, right? And life is a mess because chaos exists in the universe.
Well, I loved the reference that you made to character 2 dominant people being at the beach, right? They're the ones who are always futzing with their stuff, and they're anxious, and they're too hot, and then they're too cold, and
and that fish stinks, and I got sand in my feet and my toes, and it's just so uncomfortable. I mean, it's whatever I don't like about it. It's little character 2 and little character 2. So and a lot of people say to me, well, why do we even have a character 2? Can't we just cut that part of ourselves out? And we go to psychoanalysis for 30 years in order to fix that little character 2. But little character 2 screams loudly when it's not happy or content or it feels threat. And because we have that amygdala, what it does is it brings information in about the present moment, whatever is the present moment. And character 2 steps out of the present moment and it compares the present moment to anything that happened in the past or any perceived threat in the future. So this is designed to save our life. And it saves our life by our ability to learn. So we are capable of learning and growing past our past pains because this little character is yelling and screaming. But just because one part of our brain is yelling and screaming, character 1, it's not yelling and screaming. It is trying to figure out, how do I fix it? How do I make it safe? How do I help it heal? But character 1 is one way we can go. Character 3 and 4 in the right hemisphere, they can come in and they can nurture and soothe that little character 2 because they're in the safety of the present moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that was brilliant. I mean, just taking, I don't know how many pages and kind of summing it up. I mean, it seems like it's also character 2 that's in always going to their conditioning from childhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Because what we practice is running circuitry. And when we run circuitry, the more often we run a circuit, the more powerful it becomes and it begins to run on automatic, creating habitual patterns of behavior, conditioning.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Oh, I can't tell you how many character 1s and characters 2s I used to work for before I started my own company.
It makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to character 3 now.
Character 3 and 4 are in the right hemisphere. And the biggest difference then between the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere is that the left hemisphere has me, the individual, my identity, and it's a span across time. It has linear thinking. So it has the past and it has the future. The right hemisphere is right here, right now. That's all it is. So if you ask me, if I'm in the present moment and you ask me, who's my mother? And I'm not looking at my mother and my mother's in my present moment, I don't even know what a mother is, much less who my mother is, right? And so the right hemisphere, it's right here, right now. And it's when it's tethered to the left hemisphere, that will be a completely different experience than if the left hemisphere is completely offline. But the emotion then of the present moment. Now, the other biggest difference in me, the individual in that left hemisphere, is also the boundaries. There's a group of cells in that left hemisphere that defines the holographic image that I have of myself, where I perceive myself to begin and end here, which makes me separate from you and every other human on the planet, right? I'm a solid, I'm a single, and I'm separate. But to the right hemisphere, it doesn't have that perception. To the right hemisphere, I don't have those boundaries of where I begin and end. I'm an energy ball. And if I'm an energy ball and I am made up of atoms and molecules, this massive, dense me, my energy is literally as big as the universe. So I am a part of the collective whole of all life and all energy. And that's what's going on in the right hemisphere. And it's right here, right now. So character 3 is the experience of what does it feel like to be in the present moment. So when I dive into water, what does the water pressure feel like as it presses against my body? That's the somatic consciousness of my brain and my body. What is the temperature of the air against myself? How much humidity is there in the air? What does it feel like to have glasses on my face? And because it's not about the right, wrong, good, bad box that is defined as right and wrong and good and bad by the left hemisphere, in the absence of that right, wrong, good, bad, I'm in the present moment. I have big energy. I'm excited. I'm going to be creative. I'm going to be innovative. I'm going to be collective because there's no boundary. And why wouldn't I want to play with your big, massive energy ball too? And there's excitement here, right? There's an enthusiasm and an excitement, and it's wonderful. It is our creativity. It is our ability to get lost in the flow because, oh my gosh, the flow is all there is, right? We don't have that clock sitting and ticking in the back of the left hemisphere saying, hey, you got to stop at 5 and go to dinner, right? You don't have those control blocks. So character 3 is very playful. It's very open. It's expansive. It's empathic. Because if I'm an energy ball and you're an energy ball and I'm picking up on your energy ball, it's also got the ability to read language, but not in the form of words or the meaning of words, but it's going to pick up on your body language, on your facial language. So it's a wonderful part of who we are. However, it's also the part of us that can land us in jail because it's not inclined to fit inside of the box of society. And the left hemisphere is defining what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. And when you're bad, you go to jail and it just really wants to have a good time and be right, enthusiastically in the now. So it might make suggestions for us to go do things that are illegal. And if we're not like really paying attention to how that goes, we might well get caught.
Yeah, so this is when it seems like character 3 gets turned on when people go to Vegas.
Exactly. It gets turned on. And now you add a little alcohol and the left hemisphere is now swimming in a pool of alcohol or drugs. And that character 3 is just like, woo, no boundaries.
Yeah. These were all the fun people in college, right? Who just wanted to go and party.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's also that conversation then between when we're in college, I have an exam tomorrow. I want to go play basketball. Okay. My left hemisphere character 1 is saying, no, we need to go study. And the character 3 is going, but I want to go play basketball. And so then, oftentimes then the character 3 wins, right? If we've got a strong 3, and then we go and play basketball. But instead of then leaving basketball and going home so character 1 can study, it goes out drinking with the boys.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're just swapped for tomorrow.
Yeah. And fails the exam.
And we fail the exam. Yeah. So not that we're speaking from experience.
Oh, old enough to have been there a couple of times. A long time ago.
If I had known this, but when I was a teenager, what a difference it would have made in my life. So that's character 3, right emotion. And then character 4 is the right thinking tissue. And the right thinking tissue, think about it. It's not about me, the individual. It's about the energy in the collective whole. And it's not the energy go, 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 do, do, do. It's about the experience of oneness with all that is in its peaceful, gracious, gratitude, awe, wonder that I exist at all. And there's this incredible sense of peacefulness and love that just envelops everything of, oh my gosh, I exist at all. I have eyes that can see. I have legs that can move me about in space. I have language skills. Oh my gosh, I'm alive. And when I simply allow characters 1 and 2 to quiet down and settle down, and I can turn down character 3, so I'm not just do, 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 go, 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 but I'm simply sitting in the presence of that love. That's character 4. So when we as a society, when we meditate, we're quieting the language centers of the left hemisphere. When we pray, we're quieting the left hemisphere. When we're repeating a mantra, we're quieting the left hemisphere, so that we can actually open ourselves into the consciousness, not just of the right hemisphere that is in the present moment, because we can choose to know when I am in the present moment, but to even quiet that impetus for go and to simply exist in the appreciation and awe. And that's when we find this internal euphoria.
Yeah, that's beautiful, actually. And that's where this expanded consciousness happens.
Exactly. It is that part of us that is always expanded consciousness. It's always on.
So I was curious, as you can't see here, but beyond this monitor, there's a piano. And so I'm a pianist and love music. And so I really appreciated the reference that you made to instruments, that the 2 violins are the left side, right? The left side. And then
busy, high notes. Gotta play the melody, gotta get the attention that's loud. It's right there, all that, right? Left hand.
And then the cello is 3.
And then the cello comes in and it brings it often when I'm a cellist. The cellist will often mimic then the melody, but it dances on the offbeat. We're offbeat compared to the violins that are generally on beat.
Same with the piano, actually. Yeah. And then the viola is character 4.
Yeah. And character 4, the viola is the highest notes of the low instrument of the cello and the lower notes of the higher instruments of the violin, and it blends it all together. And it just fills in the space and makes it a whole.
Beautiful. I just love that musical analogy. That was just awesome. So character 4 was my favorite because, I have a lot of chatter on the other side and I'm forever trying to get back to the present moment and be in that now moment. For me, it's usually getting into nature. And I think that's probably why you called your character 4 Queen Toad, right? You feel like you're connecting with that part of your brain when you're in nature. Right. Can you speak about that connection, the nature connection to 4, and then also that blissful kind of connecting to understanding maybe your true authentic self at that moment?
Yeah. So the way I look at character 4 is that when we are conceived, when that egg and that sperm come together in DNA and they create that single cell, the zygote cell. And that zygote cell is going to multiply itself at a rate of up to 250,000 multiplications of the DNA and repackaging every second. So what that tells us is the consciousness of that zygote cell is in the energy. the DNA and the atoms and molecules are being manufactured to create the form, but the consciousness is in the energy. And that's why then as we are born, even though cells have differentiated, so I have brain cells, I have skin cells, I have liver cells, by the time I'm born, the brain itself has a lot of cells there, but they are not completely formed or integrated. And then once we are born, we're like a little ball of energy, right? I mean, who doesn't love a baby? And why do we love babies? We love babies because that's what they are. They are this consciousness, energy of love. And they're simply beautiful and they're a miracle. And oh my gosh, I came into the world just like this. And I was that, and now I'm this, and energy just, mirror neurons, dee. And now there's this massive energy ball of an infant, of a baby, and we just automatically hook right into that. Or we don't, right? You either love babies or babies, you don't get them, right? You don't get them because you can't find your own character 4, right? But if you got a strong character 4 and you let that meld happen, all of a sudden, what do? We coo. We become infantile. We become that energy ball of character 4. So the consciousness of character 4 is in every cell of our body. And then as we start to differentiate, like, now you're an infant and you've got body parts flailing around everywhere, right? And getting all these random movements, which are feeding information to my brain about whatever is going on. And then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, this is me. I have control of that. And then it's like that instant of differentiation. Now I have a hand and oh my gosh, I get that toe and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, that toe is mine. And so at a neurological level, I'm differentiating between my body and my brain so that I can have more control and adaptability and usage of all of these different parts. So that's all happening at that character 3 level. And then we, and I'm not happy all the time, right? Because sometimes I'm wet and sometimes I'm a mess and sometimes I'm hungry and I need to be able to yell and scream and try to get somebody's attention. And then once I've been around on the planet a little while, I realize, I really like that energy ball because that one, when I scream, that one comes in and gives me food and it makes me happy. And it's like, ooh, that one, I don't like that one. That's bad. I don't like that one, and we actually have relationships then with the development of that character 2 that is so important. And then eventually across time, character 1 starts to become educated as well. So we begin as this character 4 consciousness. We all have it in every cell of our body. And then we gain knowledge, whether it's a somatic knowledge or an emotional knowledge in that character 2, or a thinking knowledge in that character 1, and they all build on top of that character 4. So the character 4 is always there, but these others are much louder. And we've had to work hard to train ourselves to develop those skill sets because that's how we find our natural ability to interact with the external world and the social norm and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, when you're a baby, you are simply in the here and now, in the present moment, and there's no judgment. And so I wonder, because I love that part of your book. You were talking about, well, a baby needs to just like wave the hands around, right? It's an important part of understanding where it begins and the atoms and the molecules of the all, right? And I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, at some point I have to be able to differentiate between what is the mass of me and what can I do with it and the mass that is out there and how do I influence that? And can I do that with the energy of what I am, which is how we attract and how we repel all of that complexity and these beautiful skills that are very specific. Language is a very specific skill. It's abstract. It's completely abstract. We make a sound, dog is a sound, but we place meaning, which has absolutely nothing to do with the sound. I mean, a cat easily could have been a dog, right? But not in the real world, but in the language world. And then we learn numbers. And a one, what's a one? A one. Everybody does this, a one, a one. A one is everything. And then what's a 1 + 1? And it's like, well, if a one is everything, then how can you have another one, right? It makes no sense, except in the language of abstractness and our ability to wrap that skill set of those beautiful cells in that left hemisphere in order to understand what is a number.
It's interesting in this series, we've also been talking to people from Hindu spiritual orientation and belief systems. And of course, Sanskrit is one of those languages that has tonality and it has meaning beyond what it means. And that's why the chanting that you brought up earlier, when we chant in Sanskrit, it does something to the brain.
Yeah, absolutely. Different vibrations, different frequencies. As you get to know your 4 characters, you'll be able to say, oh, yeah, I mean, my friends walk in and they can immediately say, oh, hi, Helen, right? Or, right? Because my energetic, that my voice, my eyes, my clothing, usually, people can identify these 4 different characters in me very easily because they know my 4 characters. And I have come to know their 4 characters as they come to know their 4 characters. And it's so beautiful. To me, it's kind of like, I said to a friend of mine, you don't take your dog to agility camp so it can learn a bunch of loops, or you don't take it to training for you take it for the dog. The dog needs language. The dog needs to know how to perform in a way that makes you and others not fear it and to want to be with it. So differentiation is important to all of us in how we are and in how we are with one another. So whole brain living, I can tell you, this has absolutely cleaned up all of my relationships, because I don't mind if someone's miserable as long as they remember to enjoy that they're capable of being miserable. And if they call me up because they're miserable, I will just nurture that, and I will be miserable with them. And I will remind them about how magnificent it is that we are even capable of being miserable. And usually, soon you start cracking up about, well, that was ridiculous, let's go play, because we have choices. But it's the acceptance of what is, and being able to step in as a compassionate, empathic, loving human being to say, let me be with you, whatever it is, let me be with you.
So I'm curious, there was that period of time that you knew that everything on the left side was going offline. And then you had that moment where you could make the phone call and right. And then of course you completely went offline.
Right.
For those 8 years, what was the process like of having the right part of the hemisphere come back online? And was there an awareness of it at a particular point? And if so, was it something like, oh my gosh, I actually remember my mother in front of me? Or what was that process like for you?
It was circuit by circuit. When the left hemisphere went offline and all I had was the present moment, and I perceived myself to be perfect and whole and beautiful just as I was. Everyone else was freaking out, but I was okay. I was alive. It looked like I wasn't going to die. I was completely vegetative as far as they were concerned, but I was in there and observing other people and how they reacted and responded to me. And some people came in as their character 4, very loving and supportive, and I got you. My doctor, my neurologist, Ann Young, for example, she knew that I was wounded, and she perceived me as wounded. And she didn't raise her voice. She knew if I didn't understand language, it wasn't because I couldn't hear her, it was because I didn't understand language. And so she got very close to me. She murmured very gently and softly to me, very clearly, but I knew that she had me. I was safe in the presence of this person, as opposed to a nurse for example, who walked in and she put a tray of food on my table of my bed, and she didn't look me in the eye. She, as far as she was concerned, I wasn't there. There was a little milk carton there. I had paralysis in my right arm. How on earth do you open a little milk carton with one hand? You don't. There was like a Jello or something that had a cellophane lid that you had to pull out. I couldn't open that. And I'm sitting here looking at this food, feeling this energetic from this nurse, thinking, I'm scared of you. You have no idea. I'm vulnerable, and you have no idea how to communicate with me. Not even enough to recognize my physical need of not being able to eat. And a bit later, she came in and she took my food away. She decided I wasn't hungry. And I'm thinking, I haven't eaten 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God.
But
What
I
a
couldn't
lesson.
communicate that because I didn't have any language. So just being able to read the energy of people, but the recovery process was literally circuit by circuit by circuit. I'd had a goal. My goal was to strengthen my arm, but strengthening my arm, I couldn't just strengthen my right side. I had to do both. Because half the fibers in the body cross over at the spinal cord at each level. So whatever you do on one side, the other side is actually being stimulated for that. And I innately knew as a gross anatomist, that cadaver lab, that I had to have this pattern movement between the two sides. So I became rhythmically a whole being, not just now all I'm doing is working on my right side because my left side's doing everything to make up for it. Language, just the mere concept of reading. Oh my God, what's a letter? My mother would draw an S on the paper and she'd say, Jill, this is an S and it sounds like S. And I'm looking at her.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. What a lesson for the medical industry.
And then does the S, does it have to be like that? Can it be upside down? Can it be sideways? Can it be at an angle? I mean, it was all abstract, and it was just like, oh my gosh. So it was circuit by circuit, ability by ability, with a whole lot of sleep in between. And I really had to balance every effort with quality sleep, because sleep is when the brain cells are living creatures. They're eating and they're creating waste. And when you sleep, the microglial cells wake up and they're the garbage cleaners, and they clean out all the waste, so that what you have learned, you can actually land in that circuitry and have it become habitual thinking. So I'm the biggest advocate on the planet for quality sleep, quality nutrition, and quality movement in order to keep all the blood moving throughout the whole body, because we differentiate these different parts, but they don't. I'm one living organism. So I have to fuel the whole thing and tend to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's rejuvenation time. I mean, we had a doctor in our season 1 who is, pure medicine, but she does bring in integrative practices. And, she was funny at one point. She said, people who don't think they need sleep, she said, they have no idea what's happening when you sleep.
Right. Yeah, sleep is everything. I mean, sleep is everything. And it's when the whole body refuels. It reflushes and it refuels and it resets. And if you don't give yourself that, then you're going to have inflammation. And if you have inflammation, you're going to have a million problems.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's interesting because the Eastern sages and mages, they talk about when we sleep, we're bilocating and trilocating in other dimensions, right? And shamans call it something else, but there's a whole lot happening when we sleep, for sure.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to read something from the book that I just kind of blew me away, because you referenced Carl Jung here. And I just want to read this and then get your comment on it. Because this kind of reminded me of the hero's journey in a way. You were talking about how, character 1 is having a hard time wrapping its mind around the validity of existence of the consciousness of character 4, right? And we all know that, right? It's,
Right. It's a struggle.
It's a struggle. I mean, even just when I moved to California for the first time, all my character one dominant friends on the East Coast were like, okay, those freaks, right?
That's right.
Meditating and yoga in California. So anyway, that was when you were talking about how character one will possibly judge the unfamiliar, unknown, and the mystical as woo-woo. Yet throughout the history of man and in varied cultures around the world, humans have designed techniques, tools, and strategies ranging from religious dogma and prayer to meditation and yoga to access the realm of consciousness and experience their character four. And then you also referenced Carl Jung here, who spoke of the self as the archetypal part of ourselves that was the unification of our unconsciousness with our consciousness. So, I mean, I thought that was a beautiful segue. I wonder now, right, what can science learn from what we don't know that we don't know, right? Because it's still not completely measurable, although you went through the experience of
right
coming out of this. And then you I loved what you said. It was circuit by circuit. Do you have well, there's a lot of questions in there. Do you have the memory of the circuit by circuits coming online? And if so, is there anything that we can learn from that experience combined with data that exists out there that can teach us about how we can get science to a different level of understanding about consciousness?
Big question.
I know it's packed. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah. So as long as we have scientists who believe that the only science way to perform science is through the scientific method. Method by definition is linear. And the right hemisphere is not linear. So I'm fine with them doing the, scientific method as long as they acknowledge that they're only going to measure that which is measurable and repeatable, right? Those are the two criteria for the scientific method. So that's fine. It is an excellent tool for learning about the external world, the physical world, and things that are repeatable and measurable. I think that a lot of science, in the last 20 years, when I was in school back in the 80s, we could not use two words. The only time we could talk about them was at lunch, right? You'd never find it in a paper. You'd never have a conversation about it at a conference, but it was the word consciousness and the word energy. Neither one of those were we allowed to talk about. Wow. The only energy we could talk about was mitochondrial, which is an organelle inside of a cell. It's the energy producer, but we could not talk about energy. It was taboo, as was consciousness. Now, I think just about every neuroscientist went into neuroscience because they were fascinated with consciousness. But the only time we could have those conversations, and they were amazing conversations, was in the lunchroom. Yes. So that was in the 80s. So haven't we come a long way? And now, even around 2000, it was just beginning to kind of say, okay, there is this unknown, unconscious portion of who we are. And the world of psychology wanted to marry itself with the world of biology and neuro. And then we end up with things like cognitive neuroscience. So that's a step in the right direction. At least now we're looking at psychology through the lens of the brain. But what this experience, I don't bring any new science to the conversation. What I bring is through a heck of a lot of pretty amazing credentials, right? Those are kind of hard to argue with. This amazing experience that any neuroscientist, if they lost their left hemisphere, they would be equally as fascinated as I, because it's what we study. It's like, wow, oh my gosh, what's going on? So in the comparison to Carl Jung, the beauty of Jung psychology is that he divides the brain into these four characters, these four profiles, but one of them, character one, is conscious. But character 2 and 3, because they're emotional, they are below our level of control and consciousness. And character 4, we don't even know what that is, right? So in his language, character 1 is conscious, character 2, 3, and 4 are part of the human unconscious brain. So what happened with Jill Bolte Taylor was this stroke wipes out that left hemisphere. It wipes out the character 1 rational connection to the external world. It wipes out the emotion of my past and future. So it wipes out that part. But all I have left is character 3 and 4 in the right hemisphere. And I was perfectly conscious. I just wasn't conscious with the skill sets of the character 1 and character 2 of the left brain. So having had this experience, this journey into the right hemisphere, and to exist there for as long as I did, and then to use those consciousnesses, because I believe they're separate. The character 4 consciousness is pretty much a stillness awareness, the authentic self, if you will, the big truth, if you will, but it's still just a part of who I am. Character 3 is the impetus toward. I had to have that character 3 energy in order to be creative in the way I was going to rebuild that circuitry in my left hemisphere in order to regain those functions of those cells. So, all I bring to the table is a conversation of, well, what are these consciousnesses that we have access to? And I don't know how people are going to test that so much using traditional tools, but I can tell you this. We just ran a year-long research project in a school system where we're training the school administrators and teachers whole brain living, and we're teaching the parents whole brain living, and we're bringing them together in whole brain living. And it is absolutely, completely shifting the way people are interacting with one another and their overall sense of internal peace and their peacefulness in relationship to the children that we're all the village serving. And we're following yoga into prisons. Oh my gosh, can you imagine conscious prisoners? We're following yoga into prisons, following yoga into 12-step programming. We're working with judges, groups of judges who are to find their well-being, all medical professionals to increase well-being, because it's all about well-being. I can be more well in my being when I know how to access that part of my brain. It's, this is not rocket science.
Well, I think part of it is that it's never been respected. That's the big thing. I mean, it exists, but if it's kind of buried under here as woo-woo or only for monks in the East.
Right.
Right.
But, I think one of the problems with that is it has been so extreme. And I'm going to take us back then to the 70s and the 80s with the split brain where you're right-brained or you're left-brained. No, first of all, we know that is not true. We're all of it. But to be able to, and part of the problem with woo-woo is woo-woo comes with its own flavor and language that absolutely terrifies character 1s and 2s.
It does.
I don't want to talk about harmony. I don't want to talk about the law of attraction. I don't want to talk about all that stuff. I don't want to wear feathers and be flowy, and I don't want to listen to that music. It terrifies me, right? So there's been this enormous division of discomfort. And so in whole brain living, first of all, it keeps it right in the science of the brain. Yes, we are wired for this. You don't have to be woo-woo. I would not say I'm very woo-woo. I am very scientific and experiential of this part of myself that other people, I'm sure there are people who say, Jill Bolte Taylor, she's just so way too woo-woo for me. But again, that goes to each person's level of familiarity and level of comfort. And I'm thinking that most right-brainers are pretty comfortable with these concepts, and they know what's going on over here that they don't have or don't enjoy or don't respect even. And that's part of the separation. And I think most of the people in their left hemispheres are actually now open to possibilities, but it would be really nice if we would phrase it in a way that didn't freak them out.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's Carl Hunteray, who's also in the series. He's in praise of the slow movement, right? So he's not woo-woo, and he lives in England, which makes it even harder to be woo-woo. But as part of the research for his book, he talked about exactly what you're saying, is that, he had to go and test it out. He had to go to a meditation class and, and just learn that it was in alignment with slowing down.
Right.
That's it. And you slow down. When you slow down and you're more present, it has a positive impact on the body and the health and the well-being, both mentally and emotionally and physically. And so
because that go fast circuit, that is our stress circuit by definition.
Yeah. So I think that's, really, I was sort of thinking about, he was uncomfortable, using some of this language, but I think, language is power. And if we can use language in a way that doesn't scare those character 1 and 2 dominants, right? To say, this is literally just about accessing the present moment part of our brain. It's that, and I think that the other thing that the other analogy I like is sports. Mm-hmm. Because when we're playing sports, and these are people who are often character 1 dominant in some ways, with some 3, because they like to have fun and they like the thrill. Mm-hmm. But there's this moment where they are connecting with what they call it is getting in the zone. Right. Getting in the zone is, being connected with whatever it is. If you're a surfer, it's being one with the wave. So I think if we can come up with some language that doesn't scare people and allow them to have the experience. Yeah. People are doing that through ayahuasca and mushroom journeys, and they're having this experience of the present moment. And that's really all you're trying to do with this whole brain living, is really to appreciate all aspects of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you talk about when you were dancing around and playing in this character 4 part of you, where everything was atoms, and you kind of talked about just this beautiful moment that you had of remembering that we're all connected. Mm-hmm. What was that like for you? And obviously you remembered it too.
Oh, well, that's what I became. It wasn't a memory. It was what I became. In the absence of being these other things, it was like pulling off those layers. And then all I had was I was big as the universe. Yeah. And, to know that you're as big as the universe at the age of 37, and that you're going to make new decisions about how you live your life now without the willingness to let go of that awareness. And how do I now embody that awareness and still fit in as normal enough? How much of myself do I need to sacrifice in order to regain language? Just language alone minimizes an experience, and the experience itself has no language. So one of the ways, I have several ways. So I live there, and then I will come and I will explore with you as a character 1, being whole brained. But I'm not a character 1 anymore. I have a skill set of a character 1. I have a skill set of a character 2. I do spend a lot of time in my character 3, but my character 4 is where I live and breathe and have my being. That's where I exist. So my agreement with myself was that I would recover enough so that I am enough like normal people to appear normal, but I am far from normal people. And I'm good with that, because when I die, I believe that ultimately I will revert back to the character 4 consciousness as life bleeds out of my body. The consciousness of the character 4 is where I will remain. So there are a lot of things that I do in order to stay tethered to my character 4 and 3, but mostly it's a value structure. What I value now is very different than what I valued before. Before, I valued me, the individual. I was climbing the linear hierarchy of society. I wanted to be on the next rung, on the next rung, on the next rung. I wanted a bigger bank account. I wanted a bigger house. I wanted a bigger boat. And now I'm content. I still have a nice house. I still have a nice boat, but I've gotten there through a different avenue of what have what have I attracted to me as opposed to me going out to get. And those are very different ways of existing as a human being, and really valuing the connection and the time and the energy as opposed to the product or the what I will attain because of an effort, unless it fuels the connection and the wholeness of something. So I live in that space, and I come here and I play with you.
So what are some of the things that you do to try and maintain that?
Well, my favorite thing is anybody can do it anywhere. You're sitting in a room, look at the space and see if you can find a dust particle. And because there's dust particles everywhere, right? So find the dust particle and allow yourself to expand, to be, as you can hear, my language is already starting to cut out because I don't have language as a dust particle. But I'm not becoming the dust particles themselves. I allow myself to expand as the energy that is moving those dust particles in space. And as I do that, I dissolve the consciousness of the past and the future and the linearity and the language, all of that, and I become completely in the present as the expanded energy around me. So that's one way that I do it if I'm indoors. If I'm outdoors, or I can look outdoors, and I can see any movement whatsoever, like trees in nature. It's fantastic, of course, way to get to character 4. But if there's like a little bit of movement of the limbs, or sometimes there's some little leaves that are waggling, and it's almost like a little hi, hi, hi. It's like God saying, hi, come play with me, come play with me. And so I look at that, and I don't focus as the leaf or the waggling or the messaging. I become the energy between me and it, which can be 10 feet or 50 feet or 100 feet or whatever, but I become the energy that is interspersed between everything that is creating that movement that is expanded, not just in my focal, but in all of my peripheral. And as I do that, I literally feel my chest expand, and I'm there. That's what I am. And I say, hello, God.
That's the awareness that we are connected to the all that is, that we are the leaf, but we're also all the molecules and everything that make up the leaf, but we're also part of the all, right?
Yeah, we're the energy that is wiggling it all. I mean, even in that transparent energy of space. I do think that it's lovely the way that the eye has evolved over time to make atoms and molecules in air invisible. But I think that really contributed to the way the human brain organizes. I am separate from everything. When we're outside and it's cold and we can see our breath, and we can really recognize we're a part of the environment and influencing it, and it's influencing me, it really increases the awareness of I'm a fluid entity swimming in this sea of electromagnetic radiation within which it is around me, and it is of me, and I am of it. There's no disconnect. So to exist in that consciousness is very different than here I am, I'm a single, I'm a solid, here's where I begin and end, here's the language, here's my name, and I put earrings in today.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I mean, one thing you're kind of talking about there, or at least segues into, is entanglement, right? But, even quantum physicists are now saying, right, it's not that we are in the universe, but the universe is in us.
It's all one thing.
It's all one thing. Yeah. So, one thing that you also brought in, part of the archetypes, but also the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. So are we all on the hero's journey to get back to character 4? Because character 4 is where we began and where we end. And it's the present, the I am presence of all that is.
Well, I think it's a good goal to be on the hero's journey. If I'm caught in my addiction, it's hard for me to be willing to release that pain, that piece of me, in order to say, because I have to lay that down. The challenge of the hero's journey is the hero is attracted by taking a journey to learn something that it's going to have to settle itself down in order to go be and allow itself to be something unknown. And that can be terrifying to a character too, that says, but this is me. If you set me down, I'll die. And it's like, no, honey, we can pick you up just like that. It's okay. We'll settle you down, or character one, ego, it's all about me. It's about mine. I got to be right. And it's like, no, you can explore new possibilities. It's okay, little character ones and little character twos. It's okay. And to be willing to step into facing the monsters. I mean, the journey is then immediately met with all the monsters, and the monsters are my attachment to myself, my attachment to my addiction, my attachment to my attachments. I have to settle and let those go in order to truly take this journey so that growth can happen. And as I go into the unknown and I identify new parts of myself in different ways, and then I go running back to my left brain to say, okay, it's here, I'm okay, but to really let that go. But the ultimate goal is to find the peace, to find the euphoria, the bliss, the satisfaction of being alive. Oh my gosh, the connection to all that is. Isn't that the reward at the end of that journey? And then I'm there. And isn't that what happened to Jill Bolte Taylor when I had that stroke? And I set down characters 1 and 2, and I became as big as the universe. Why did I come back? I have so many people say to me, what on earth motivated you to leave that and come back to humanity? Well,
I know the answer. I definitely know the answer. You came back because you had a job to do. You came back because you're a neuroanatomist, and you're the one with credibility who is able to talk about your experience there, and then how to teach us all how to get back to it as we choose. That's why you came back.
Yeah. And then boom, I'm dead. I did my duty, and I'm off in euphoria for all eternity. I was good with that.
Well, I know we're about to wrap here because but I do want to. There's 2 more things that I quickly want to talk about because I thought it was great in the book. You talked about the brain huddle.
Yep.
This is a way for us to all get back to and you had B for breath, R for recognize, A for appreciate, I for inquiry, and N for navigate. And I had all these other words that kind of came in too. I know. I was like trying to create this thing. It was like it was very exciting, actually.
It's fun.
Yeah, I was imagining a movie coming out about this. I had some really great ideas about that. I mean, imagine that. Imagine having all these characters running around as a movie or screenplay. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So the brain huddle, to bring all these 4 characters together.
Yeah, so I call it the brain huddle because, this is the brain team, characters 1, 2, and 3, and 4. We all have them. In some of us, character 1 may be more dominant, character 3 may be more dominant, character 2 may be more dominant, and there are some people who character 4 is more dominant. But you get to know all 4 of them because we have all 4. And the brain huddle is designed to, in any moment of conflict, and I encourage people to actually train when you're not in conflict. Call a brain huddle 20 times a day. BRAIN, that's the acronym. Breath. Focus on breath. Why do we always focus on breath? It brings us into the present moment. It's the first thing we do when we're born. It's the last thing we do before we pass away from this life. And it's like a train running in a track in the present moment. So breath. Okay, focus on my breath. Inhale. I can change the amplitude of my breath, the frequency of my breath. I can change my breath. I'm in the present moment. R is recognize which of the 4 characters called a brain huddle. And this is why practice is important. Train your character 1 to call a brain huddle. Train your character 3 when you're out and you're in the middle of play and you're going, huddle, where is everybody? Because the ultimate goal is to call all 4 into the huddle, get everybody together. So recognize who called the huddle. BRA, appreciate, regardless of who called the huddle, there's 4 of us, right? Character 4, Queen Toad, are you here? Queen Toad's going, I'm always here, and I'm good. right? Character 2, are you here? And character 2's not unhappy in this moment. So it's going, yeah, I'm here. I'm good. I'm okay. Character 1, are you here? And Helen's going, in 3 minutes, we have an appointment. But you got 3 minutes there. And so bring them all on. Appreciate there's 4 of us. I is inquire in this present moment, who are we going to give the microphone to? Are we going to give it to Helen so she can go have an interview? Are we going to give it to little character 2 so that we can work through something? Are we going to give it to little character 3 Pigpens and go be creative for a little bit? Or are we going to just sit in the presence of our God, of our godly selves, and appreciate with the gratitude that, oh my gosh, I'm here to love everybody. Our number one job, I truly believe, as human beings, is to love one another.
Yes.
And if we love one another, then everything else is gravy. It'd be nice if we could get along. So N then is navigate moment by moment by moment. Which of the 4 characters are we calling on in order to live the life we want to live? And that might mean in this moment, I'm Helen with you. But if all of a sudden I have an earthquake, Pigpen's going to come on and say, I got to go. Bye. Right?
There was a great analogy that you had in there that all of us have gone through. And it was the example of having to return something to the store. And in my 3 moment, or probably mostly 3, when I'm doing that, and you talked about how 1 was like, got to get everything structured, but appreciates the customer. And number 2 is all about the rules, right? And so when you said all about the rules, you have to go stand in line, then you've got to go stand in line again. And I remember being there so many times, and I now have the awareness that all of those sales clerks are 2s, And so what can we do when we're aware in the moment? How can we not have those triggers come up for us on the receiving end?
Yeah. I mean, we have mirror neurons. We are designed. If you're in your character 2 unhappy, then my mirror neurons can come right in and I can get unhappy too. And then tit for tat, and 2 character 2s will never find a resolution, right? No. So you come in as a character 1, you recognize this is a character 2 I'm dealing with, and it allows us to essentially override the automaticity of the mirror neuron, which is actually a good thing. It's wonderful that we can mirror one another for empathy and compassion and openness, but sometimes we just need to be the kind authority. Yeah. Just because you're unhappy, I don't have to be unhappy too. So really, but this is where mastery happens. And you might be standing in line, having your own brain huddle going, okay, well, you're watching the person interact with the 2 people in front of you. It's like, okay, she's being a character 1. She's just very formal. She's got to check this off, do what you need to do, blah, blah, blah. Or are they just kind of like, yeah, but you got to, but, and here's the box. Or it might be a character 3 who just really doesn't care at all, and is saying, "Oh, we have this in pink and blue. You can go get either one of anything you want. Just bring it back to me, and I'll check it off." Right? So we all have these capacities. How lovely that we have the capacity to recognize them in one another, and then to have the ability to say, regardless of who you are or what you're bringing into my world, I have the power to choose the energy within which I'm going to live and who I want to be.
Yeah. I loved all of your examples. I thought it was brilliant because these are the interactions that we all have, right? We've all had, we go to it. And so I think it was great to bring one up that was going to be a trigger for so many of us. It made me think of walking onto an American airline. I think it was American Airlines. It could have been another one. And this was around the time they started charging for everything, right? The blanket, the pillow, everything, and I remember walking on and, I run a travel magazine. So, I don't want to raise the flag. I just want to go in there and I don't want to say, give me my blanket. I'm a travel writer, right? But it pissed me off, right? I was like, I can't believe we have to pay for this. And there was a woman, a stewardess who was standing there and she heard this going on. People were arguing about it. And she said, I don't think it's right either. And she kind of passed me one under without charging me. And so it's funny because when I was reading the book, I was thinking, wow, she was a 3. I guess she would be a 3, right?
Yeah.
That would be probably a 3.
Yeah, either that or in her right, wrong, good, bad, she wasn't sold on the idea of what the business was doing. And so she made a conscious decision to be kind. And that's the thing about getting to really know these characters in yourself, and then the subtle nuances that happen inside of ourselves, and then in that exchange with one another. And, when somebody's unhappy and you come in as a 4 and you just kind of hold the space for them and you don't fuel it, then it tends to not, at some point the fire burns out. I mean, it's no fun to throw a fit without a reaction, right? So I can come in and try to fix it. Well, I don't want you to fix it. So that can fuel that fight. Love comes in, play comes in and says, I'm going to go play. When you're ready, you come out too. You know where to find me. And then often, we all have had that experience. It's like, what do I really want to sit here and pout, or do I want to go play? Okay, I'll go play.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, I just love that. And we remember these moments, right?
Yeah.
We absolutely remember these moments when someone has gone outside of the rule box or whatever, and they've made it matter because they care more about that love and connection.
Right.
And I think that's really, your analogy there to the hero's journey. I want to really get back to this oneness, but a lot of us don't know how, or we've been so ill-equipped and inexperienced doing it for so long that A, we have forgotten that we're interconnected, right. And B, it doesn't make sense because we're so out of practice that, we need to kind of get into the ring again with each other.
Right.
So brilliant, brilliant. Go buy the book.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I'm making my second way around and there's notes everywhere, as you can see.
Perfect.
So Jill, this has been just an amazing conversation. Is there anything that we left out or anything that you're working on? I know you have a foundation. Is there anything else that you're working on that we should know about?
I'm the kind of person who right now what I'm doing is I've had so many different kinds of people come to me for different populations and said, I want to bring whole brain living into my hospice care. I want to bring whole brain living into my business, my board of directors, whatever. And so I encourage people to reach out to me because I'm only one person and I do have my machine that is capable of creating content that I consider the buffet from which everyone else can come and feed on that buffet. So I can empower each of you to become the rock star in your own field. I don't need that status. If I can support you in what you can do, that's the best way to work with me. I'm sure that I will create courses on how to do deeper dives into this. I've had lots of coaches and therapists come and say, give me a deeper dive into how to coach somebody with this. Teachers want it, parents want it, kids love it. One of the things we didn't talk about was, you can say to a 5-year-old, you can teach them about their 4 characters and they get their 4 characters. And then you can say, okay, let's identify the 4 characters in SpongeBob. And they'll label, this is character 1, this is character 2, 3, and 4. You say the same thing to a group of teenagers who are big on Harry Potter, and they love it. They can identify their 4 characters. And then you say, who's character 1? And everybody sounds together. Hermione, because she's the one who's always doing the research and doing the book work and teaching everybody else how to do things right? It's amazing how, because it is the anatomy of our own brain, it is our natural biology. We all have all 4. As we get older, we kind of cling more to certain ways of being. But boy, when we're younger, we have much greater fluidity. So I so encourage people to learn more about the 4 characters. It's a beautiful book. It's beautiful material, and it can really help heal your relationships so that they become just really very healthy.
Yeah. And I think that brain huddle is, just a brilliant way to do that. And also you talked about you're going to be coming out with workbooks too, which I think is going to be great. Yeah. I couldn't put it down. I was, I'd go to bed. That's usually when I read, and then I'd wake up at 3 o'clock and I'd want to dive into something, and I'm writing notes and my partner's like, what are you doing?
I
3
love it.
o'clock in the morning, notes with a flashlight.
I love it.
Yeah, that's how great it was. So thank you so much.
Happy. We finally connected. Thank you.
I know. Amazing.